Hi, everyone. I am Sherilyn with Joyly. We are on the Joyly podcast, where we are living a journey through life expansion. And really, we are in an economy experience. And so I'm super excited to continue to talk about this chair of joy that I have here in the studio with me, and how it impacts the world as far as raising the vibration around the concept of joy. So today our guest is Mike Fidgeon, coming to us from Dubuque, Iowa. So Mike, first of all, welcome.
Thank you, Cheryl. Pleasure to be here.
So you are with an organization called Hillcrest Family Services, and you came from West Virginia to Dubuque, Iowa. What made you exactly want to make that move? I know we're both from the Midwest, so I wanted to just check in to see if that was part of the neat reason to go.
Well, I'm going to correct you because West Virginia and Virginia are two very different places, but Central Virginia was my place of origin for the last 30 years before I came to Dubuque, and I've been in Dubuque for about 10 months now, since July of 2020. And I came out here to lead a mental health, behavioral health organization. They refer to it actually as brain health out here in Iowa.
And so what was the decision to make the move? I'm just curious if there is passion behind what you're doing, or if was your family wanting to make a move? What was the ultimate reason for the move?
Yeah, there were a number of factors, but passion drives so much of what I do in life. And my background has been in community-based mental and behavioral health for the last 30 years. I was with a company that started small on the East Coast and scaled to be a national and international company delivering community-based behavioral health services. Actually started in that business as a direct client service, providing I don't have a counseling degree, but 30 plus years ago it wasn't required to do the direct service work. And I finished with that company as the CEO, and led the sale of the business in 2015 to a large health plan in California called Molina Healthcare. The passion for me, though, really goes back to childhood. Parents that were career parole probation officers, and always impressed upon their children that they should go out into the world anytime they were having a hard time or a rough day and look for somebody that was having it a bit harder. They're easy to come by. And do something for them, specifically for them, and see how quickly you get out of your own problems and your troubles. And that litmus test, or that test, never failed me, and led to a lifelong pursuit of trying to serve others.
Are your mom and dad still with us?
Yeah, they're in Delaware now, and they're I think crossing into their 80s now, so still with us though.
I bet they're very proud of you.
I would hope so. We don't talk too much about work related things, but in terms of the things that drive happiness in life, most of it's relationships. So that's what seems to be important to us.
I find it interesting that they were both parole officers. Did they meet there and in that environment?
I think they met around a rugby field, believe it or not. So my dad played rugby, and my mom was actually married to a rugby player, and the relationships for both of them their first relationships didn't work, and their second did. So we ended up a blended family, but I believe rugby was the thing that brought us together. And my dad was already into parole and probation services, and my mom, after raising kids to a point of independence, which 30 years ago happened earlier than I think it does today. She started to volunteer in psychiatric facilities, and then eventually went back and got some more education and became a parole probation officer herself, and outlasted my dad in the number of years doing that.
Well, thank you for a little bit of background. I feel like it's really important to know who we're talking to when it comes to the next questions that I'm going to ask about your, CEO-ship and how you kind of run the organization. So if you don't mind, would you be able to tell us what do you think is the biggest strength of Hillcrest right now?
I think the biggest strength of Hillcrest is its people. I often compartmentalize my thinking about this organization and others like it that I've been a part of as people, process, and technology. And I always say people always first. So This is a service organization, and if you look at it in terms of financials, 75 to 80 cents of every dollar that's donated or provided by a government funding source for client care goes into our payroll. So it pays for the people that deliver that care, and therefore people are our greatest asset, as cliche as that may sound.
What an amazing business model. There are many that are not exactly like that or even close to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in the shift I made coming from Virginia to Dubuque. I've also shifted from a for-profit model of community-based mental health services to one that's not-for-profit here at Hillcrest. So even this is feels even better because margin isn't the end goal. It's really trying to increase capacity to serve more people with exceptional services provided by exceptional people, and driving the best results that we possibly can in terms of quality life and happiness for the people that we serve.
That's really awesome. May I just do a little clarification? I always like to have us talking the same language. So what I've learned over the years and why the chair of joy became a thing was I put happiness in the same bucket as fear, worry, anger, and disgust. And that is because happy, like those, they're kind of fleeting and not dependable. So if you're sick or you're, having a miserable day, you might say, I'm really hungry. I'm going to eat a big old fat sloppy cheeseburger and French fries. And then when you're done with that, you're saying, gosh, I don't feel so good. Now I'm feeling fat. And you were happy and then you're not happy. So joy, on the other hand, is more sustainable. It's a word that we use at Christmas time or maybe during a surprise birthday party, but something that I think that could be in our vocabulary more often. So if you don't mind, as we go forward, if we could use the word joy more often, I think that's who your employees are. So that's my next question is, would you say based on pay, I'm going to go with yes, but would you say your employees are A, joyful, and B, what are they expecting from you as a leader when it comes to joy?
Wow, that's you said a lot there. So I think that I love the pivot from happy to joyful, and you mentioned Christmas, and to me, happiness is more emotional, and I think if we kind of went with the ebbs and flows of our emotions, we'd feel a lot of ups and downs. Whereas joy is kind of where we anchor our being, and for me, I have spiritual convictions and commitments. That's where I find my source of joy. So that tends to be pretty steady in my life, regardless of whether the clouds are out or not. I know the sun's above them. So as it relates to the employees here, and I refer to our employees as colleagues. A lot of times people refer to folks in their organization as staff. That to me sounds like an infection that I don't want to get. So, colleagues is how I've tended to relate to the folks that provide the service. And I also like it because it doesn't make titles too important. We're all in the same organization providing different functions to achieve similar goals. But folks here are definitely driven by the reward of service to others. It's I don't think it's a big surprise that these types of services, social services and social welfare services, are not well funded, and therefore the end result for those that make a practice or a living of it is that it's not a large amount of take-home pay. So it's got to be other things that drive folks' commitment and investment to serve people that are in great need of service. And there's an element of joy that has to bring to them as well to their clients to make that equation work.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And who's the person that they go to when there's a little bit of, when it gets complicated, when that isn't the case? Do you get wind of that, or is it something that you get to address right away?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I tend to approach leadership with the mindset that if things are going well, then everybody else on the team should get the credit. And when things aren't going well, then blame me and let's talk about it. Let's figure out where we've missed the mark, or why the equation isn't working to the benefit of both parties, or more if there are more people than two involved. So I find that people come to the top oftentimes with complaints, but I also have some pretty general rules that if you're going to bring me a problem, bring me 3 solutions to that problem as well, and we'll have productive conversation.
That's very, very, very clear, and I bet they respect that as well because they know, what it is that they need to do to get to the next step. So that's awesome. What a great model. Um, so based on all of that, first of all, there's 325 employees. Did I read? Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. We're down about 100 employees as a result of the pandemic. So, pre-pandemic, it was about 425 employees, 325 today.
And is that all that mostly in Dubuque?
Actually, we serve 15 or 16 counties, including Dubuque County. So we have a campus style continuum of care here locally, which if you came to our campus, you'd find a school, a gymnasium, a chapel, multiple adult group homes with 5 adults in them, some adolescent homes with 10 to 12 youth that are receiving services from us, and then a number of programs that operate from this as their base of operation, but they tend to go out into the community more and do things like HIV education, tobacco education, involved in the schools and delivering services in the schools and things of that nature.
So that's incredible. I would love to visit it someday and maybe bring the chair. I travel around the country with it, so it'd be fun to put it in your office, actually. But would you say that you're one of the major employees there? Because you're only like 58,000, is that right?
Yeah, I want to say Dubuque, and again, I'm by no means, I couldn't tell you the history of Virginia, and I lived there for 30 years, so don't quiz me on Charlottesville or Fredericksburg, where I spent most of that time. I want to say 90,000 is what I remember from a conversation within the last week that somebody here locally referred to Dubuque's population.
So are you one of the largest employers?
To that question, yeah, I would say so. Although we've got companies like John Deere out here and Flex Steel, and IBM was here, and then I think they departed recently and left just a few people behind. So there's a lot of industry here. So there's some big players. I would say as a provider of this type of service, human services, behavioral health, mental health, community-based services, we're one of the larger of our kind in the counties we serve.
Awesome. So mental health is intriguing to me, and I think that it's just such an amazing place to be and to serve. And would you be able to just give me a tiny little bit of history of Hillcrest? I was looking at some of the pictures and some of the buildings that were purchased in 1898. I mean, just amazing history.
Yeah. So Hillcrest dates back to 1896, and therefore this year is its 125th anniversary. It started as a baby fold or adoption service, and it grew from there into welfare programs for single moms and their kids, and from there it moved more into residential services for youth, and ultimately expanded into mental and behavioral health services, and runs a continuum, as I indicated earlier, of various programs that are bit heavy on the facility side, bricks and mortar, but they also provide some really innovative programs that get out into the community. There's a program called Assertive Community Treatment, which is a team approach to serving folks in their homes and communities when they're at an impasse in life that involves either mental health problem or diagnosis, and we bring the service to them. So as well as crisis response and other things of that nature. Traditional outpatient counseling is also delivered through about a half dozen mental health centers that we have around the surrounding counties.
Wow, no small tasks that you took on. Congratulations on your role, and good luck. I'm sure it's going to be very expansive. Even coming, you've only been there a few months, right? Since 2020. Yeah. So
that's correct. 10 months.
So I want to talk a little bit more about this idea of joy in the workplace. And I think you've explained how you lead, which is exactly who I thought you were. So I'm so glad that's what you are, as I planned and discovered, because we can have this next conversation about longevity. So longevity is really something that I think that we're all striving for as a human race, and mental health is just another one of those ideas to get resourced or sourced, if you will. So I came up with a plan called the Chair of Joy Practice, and it's based on neuroscience. I work with Dr. Paul Abel, who is a longevity coach. He's been studying longevity for, I think he had a clinic in Beverly Hills of 35 years. So he discovered that at the end of the rainbow, the one thing that we're all missing in life is, believe it or not, joy. So he loves what we're doing. So I wondered if you could do the practice with us. It's really quick and a lot of fun.
Sure.
Okay, so just put your feet on the ground. I just want you to take a deep breath. Just kind of get centered with me. And it's been a busy day, I'm sure. Lots and lots of emails. So just get present. Nothing else matters, just this at the moment. And okay, and then one more deep breath in. And I want to see if you can tap into one of your most joyful moments of your entire life. You might have been a young boy or just yesterday or anywhere in between, but something that just kind of gave you goosebumps and you said, this is where I have it all figured out. Whenever you're ready, if you could just tell me what that was.
Yeah, so I as a kid, and I don't know what age I was, but I wasn't driving, so I was younger than 16, but probably older than 9 or 10. I'm in this wooded area outside of where I lived, close by Annapolis, Maryland. I grew up near or on the Chesapeake Bay, and there was a place in our community that the kids referred to as 80 acres. It was 80 acres of undeveloped wood, and we used to go in there and run and play and bike and do all sorts of things. So you running me through that exercise just brought me back to the temperatures and the smells and the feeling of just fun with friends and being a kid.
When's the last time you've been in 80 acres of untapped acreage?
Oh my gosh, couldn't be further from it now with the connection to social media and coffee machines and, the malls and billboards and everything else, computer screens. So it's been a long time since I felt what I my mind brought me back to.
All right, we're going to do the same thing one more time. So
Okay.
One more deep breath in. Different place, different time. Maybe you were giving a speech. Maybe you were at home. Maybe it was a family event, food, whatever it is. Another joyful place, moment, or time.
Okay.
And go ahead.
So what came to my mind, probably because you said giving a speech or that might have triggered this thought, was my dad, who is probably 80, 81 this year. Was retiring from his job with DC District of Columbia government. He had worked in adult probation for the better part of his life and retired as a deputy director for the courts down there. And I just remember getting the opportunity to speak on his behalf in front of all of his friends and our family. And it was, a chance to recognize him among his peer group and people that reported to him, as well as my brothers, my sisters, and just let him know what an impact his work ethic and what he, put his life to had on me.
Was he moved by that?
He was, yeah, I think so. He wasn't the most expressive person emotionally, but I recall him being moved in the way that Dad got moved.
That's really special. Well, that's an honor. So that's awesome that you shared both of those memories. So if you could take the 80 acres of wood, it's funny you said 80 in both of those comments, but 80 acres of wood and your dad who's retiring at age 80 from his probation work, if there is one word, like the essence of those two memories that you could come up with, what might that be?
Authentic.
Okay, love it. So if you could, so would you say when you're being authentic, that's joy for you, and joy is being authentic?
Yeah, I think that's right. There's just there's no airs about anything. It is what it is, and it's it's pure.
It is. All right. So I always ask people if you could put, this is a little funky, but we'll get through it. It just takes a second. The first thing that comes to your mind, if you could put this authenticity in some kind of container, Any kind of container, big or small, what would that container look like?
I could put it in a container. Uh, Boy, I had an immediate thought, and I was like, no, you wouldn't put it in that, but
Yes.
I can't kick it. So it'd be a boat of some shape or form, right? My dad liked to sail, and he was into sailboats of progressively bigger sizes over the course of his experience with that. And I was always in boats myself. I had a preference for motor boats over sailboats, but enjoyed both. So I'd put it in a boat of some shape.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, I don't say this to many people as we're going through the process, but because you're living it and doing it as a human being already, the idea of taking joy, the essence of authenticity, and making it intangible into the tangible, which is now this boat container thing. And so now I ask people to carry it with us. And we're going on an airplane and we're getting off the airplane in LaGuardia Airport. There's 3,000 CEOs there, just like you. They're running large corporations, 40s, 50s, 60s. They don't understand this joy thing that we're talking about. They don't understand that joy affects the bottom line, and that joy is authenticity and authenticity is joy. What might you say to them?
Yeah, so I've had to first walk myself through this picture of getting on a plane with a boat. So the boat got smaller than I'd first envisioned it. It's more of a toy boat, and I think you said New York or someplace. So I envisioned the little sailboats in Central Park that you can rent that are remote controlled or something. So let's say it's a symbol of what you're talking about as it relates to joy and the audience of CEOs that are in front of me. And I would say, look, you've got to release it from yourself in order to enjoy it, right? So like the boat, you got to put it down and you got to let it go in different directions and go out and come, and it will come back. But you can't be afraid to, it's not something you hoard. It's not something that is a selfish indulgence. It's something that the more that you give it away, the more you get back.
How profound is that?
Pretty profound, but it was your exercise, not mine. So we didn't script this, but I thought it was pretty daggone good.
It is when everybody does it, and really the intention is for me to play it back and let you hear it for yourself. Because
I heard it as I was saying this. Give me a little chill bumps.
Well, yeah, isn't it true that we get caught up in what we're doing and we forget about the things that drive us and keep us going and what's most important? So I appreciate you sharing that with me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do that's joyful outside of the office?
Oh boy, I don't know. So what I do, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so that's a really hard question. Life has changed so much until the pandemic. I'm an old, dying, don't want to give up jock. So I discovered about 10 years ago that old guys still play lacrosse, which was the game of my youth, and we got back together about 10 years ago, and I usually travel to 3 or 4 tournaments a year and play an insane number of games with guys that I've known for 30 years now, and it never grows old. The equation there is that as long as the pain is, or as long as the joy is greater than the pain, I keep doing it. So it's getting closer to equal with each passing year, but it's still greater, and so that's what I do. And with the reality of a pandemic having changed all that, and my wife and I having moved out here to Dubuque, the beauty of this place is everything's close. We used to live 45 minutes from civilization, where we lived in central Virginia on a lake, and now we're within 5 minutes of downhill skiing, bicycling, cross-country skiing, movie theaters, golf, you name it, everything. 7 miles is about as far as you need to go to get to anything. And then if you want something different or nice, it's about a 40-minute drive, and that's still less than what it used to take me to get into town every day to buy a gallon of milk where I used to live.
Yep, and I bet you don't have some of the traffic issues as well. What do you think?
No, there's not traffic here compared to what traffic is, especially if you've been in or around DC.
Interesting. All right. Well, I appreciate the fact that we talked about your joy in multiple facets at work, how you interact with your employees, how you just have had joy in your own experiences in your own life, and even in your current day and age, and what you and your wife do to experience joy. So this whole thing for me is just, I really want to pound home the conversation with you about the chair of joy. So before I go further into my questions, what is the purple chair behind you? What is that about?
That chair?
Yeah.
Okay. I joke sometimes, or I should say, folks that come into this office often joke that that's, is that the throne? And I say, if it is, that's for you, not for me. I'm either the court jester or, maybe sometimes I'm the queen, but I'm not the king, nor do I want to necessarily have to, sit on that throne, and pass judgment or, oftentimes what the king doesn't realize is, there's a lot more people passing judgment on you than you on others. So, no, I haven't really given too much thought to the lavender chair or purple chair or whatever color chair that is behind me. Other than that, that sticks out for me because we've chuckled about it from time to time. It's just a comfy chair. You ever watch Monty Python? Torture them with the comfy chair or the comfy pillows or something like that. Yeah.
We'll talk about that in just a second because I have a really great idea I want to share with you. But if you could pick a chair of joy at home, what would that be? Where would you go somewhere that you could just be about you and your thoughts?
Oh boy, I'm not even in a chair. I've got a standing desk here actually. So, I feel most joyous when I'm active. I love a soft chair and a couch and a fire and a book and stuff like that, but that's slowing down. That's not, getting my energy and my engagement where I like it to be. But I love to stand around a fire, and just maybe from again back to childhood and some of the work that I did in that wilderness residential program. It's just a very peaceful place and a place that I can kind of be with my thoughts. And sometimes the fire kind of each fire has its own kind of life and shape to it. So just an experience I enjoy.
I'm right there with you. When we moved here where we are now, we moved away from our beautiful cabin up in Michigan, 4 acres. I had 6 fireplaces everywhere on the property. It was just, I feel the exact same way. So if I were to say to you in general, and I think this is important is for other CEOs listening, is that joy, when you're making decisions in joy. So if whether it's in the fire, in a chair by the fire or in a chair of joy, the decision, wouldn't you agree, based on your silence and your contemplating and your thought, is better than coming from a place of stress or worry or chaos or fear? Tell me about that.
110%, absolutely. I think my personality and my wiring, my brain works with open loops. So, I'm constantly grinding on an issue to solve or a problem to improve, fix, etc. And I find that it's usually, when I'm able to release a lot of the tension of, actively trying to solve the problem, that the answers come. And it's, I can be on a treadmill or jogging or biking or, doing anything in sort of a relaxed kind of released way. And those, those connections start to be made, and next thing I know, I'm walking into a meeting going, I've got the answer. Here's what we need to do, or at least here's what I think we need to do.
So would you agree that skill is a little bit few and far between?
Yeah, I don't know that, what you're describing it as a skill. And, I guess if it's a skill, for me personally, I wouldn't know how to teach that. I wouldn't, really know how to articulate how that slowing down and kind of being able to center your brain in a way that allows for you to be attentive to what's really in the middle of what are otherwise very busy thoughts, right? Because I think somewhere in there's the answer. We just sometimes don't slow down long enough to hear what's being whispered to us. So it's a matter of finding that space and presence to listen.
I always say that if people are Christian or God fearing, that you can't hear God speaking because you're blabbing all the time, right? People are so noisy and loud. It's like, how do you expect him to talk to you or answer or say anything to you if you keep talking all the time?
Yeah, no, there's a cartoon out there that I think some people are familiar with the guy standing on the roof of his house in the flood and, saying, God's going to save me. God's going to save me, to the boat that comes, the helicopter that comes, everybody that comes by to help. And he ends up in heaven and, God, why didn't you save me? And God says to him, I sent a boat, I sent a helicopter, why weren't you listening to me? So you got to be attentive. If you're looking for a certain type of God that's going to show up, you might be missing God.
That's adorable. All right. So just to kind of wrap up here, if I were to ask you, could you find your place of joy or your fireplace or something more often? Is it possible that even more solutions and more growth and more development could occur?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's true. And I also think that, I think there are seasons for a reason. So, there's sometimes things can't be forced. So I think it's that sort of thing can be accelerated to a point. But, even going back to my cartoon description of God, there are some times where it's yes, no, and other times where it's wait, so, you might be having a desert experience, and even if I can help you or you can help me become more peaceful and centered, doesn't necessarily mean that the answer that I need is going to come quicker if it's not the right time for the answer.
Also, and it also doesn't mean that joy is the thing that happens every day, all day long, right? There's ebb and flow. We're human. We have to live all the emotions and we get to experience that. That's what makes us even more joyful when those moments do come. We're more appreciative.
Well, yeah, it's a great point. And I often find, I'm thinking of both individuals I've talked to and groups I've talked to and I don't know where this, just kind of a lived experience that I think we all have. But I've often said, look, the valleys and the mountaintops, right? Profound joy is accentuated by profound sorrow and loss. And folks that have had those extremes, it's a double-edged sword, right? But people that are really struggling, and in the work that I've done for over 30 years, meet more people that are struggling than that can claim that their life has been full of joy. But they know when they're involved in joy because they've experienced and lived deep sorrow. So I just think it's a part of living on earth. One doesn't come without the other.
Absolutely. And I think the process that we just took you through, having two memories and having a connecting word, which was yours was authentic. If we did this with a team, if we brought 30 of your people in and they sat around in the chair or whatever, they would all have different experiences. They would all have different words. And if they did it later that afternoon, they'd all have different experiences and all have different words. And it's just something that builds upon and creates a higher vibration, if you will. So yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think our work together here today and letting other CEOs know that this is not all that easy and that it does take work and it takes constant attention and focus every day. I can tell that that's who you are. So I really appreciate that. My last question for you is that beautiful little boat that you put in the Central Park River or lake. If you could give that away to someone today, who would it be? It's a boat full of authenticity. Who could you give it to today?
Oh boy, that's a good question. And my immediate thought would be the senior leadership team that I'm involved with. It's been a rather transformational time for the business and therefore for the people in the business, and the 4 leaders that directly report into me. We've undertaken a lot of change in the 10 months that I've been here. Some of that brought about by virtue of the fact that I'm a new leader that is bringing new ways of doing things and thinking about things, but also the pandemic. They had done so much work to just stabilize this business long before I ever arrived here. And I think they were tired and they were looking for somebody to take over the reins. So, there was an element of risk and vulnerability and trust, all, wrapped up together. And I think that they're worn out. And so I would want them to, I'd want them to have it. I think they've earned it.
I absolutely agree. And the people that are coming out on the other side of this pandemic even stronger and more sure of who they are and what they're doing, I think is just building the fabric of our nation even stronger. So
yeah.
Absolutely. All right. I would just love to hear a takeaway from this interview today, and any last words you'd like to share with our audience.
Well, the takeaway is your chair. I told you about mine, and you didn't tell me enough about yours other than you like to take it on the road with you. So I'm not sure if this is a model chair or if you've got to get a U-Haul and throw that full-size chair in it before you show up at somebody's office and say, chair ladies here. Or how do you actually refer to yourself, Cheryl Lynn, when you're showing up with your chair?
I am the chair of joy. So I consider myself, not only is it the chair of joy, but it's the chair of joy. And on my website, I describe it kind of as the Mona Lisa or the Mona Larry. When people sit in it, they feel very elevated and they feel, just kind of tuned in and tapped in, and that for once the spotlight is on them. And so when they sit in the chair, and the chair is it's about the chair, but it isn't. When they sit in the chair of joy, whether it's yours or mine, there is transformation. They sit down as one person and they come out differently, in that they understand that, oh, what joy was actually inside of me all this time. Right. And it's not something I have to spend money on or go get. So yes, it just depends. We do chair of joy conversations via the virtual or in person. Either way, they are amazing and fun.
Yeah, that's great. Well, my takeaway is that I think you just said it. It's always there, right? It's a matter of tapping into it, and you have to be intentional. But being intentional, isn't just all about discipline and scheduling and showing up consistently. It's about being able to slow down and listen to others, and listen to your own inner dialogue. And easier said than done. I am by no means a master of that, but again, I don't think joy's necessarily something that people live at that mountaintop all the time. So
awesome. And any other words, just on behalf of Hillcrest, or anything else you'd like to say to our CEOs that are listening today?
I would just say, bring your authentic self into each meeting. Be present with people. There's a reason that you are hired to that position, and there's don't try to be somebody else. There's everybody else is taken, so just go ahead and be you.
We'll stick around a little bit after this, Mike. I'd love to speak with you some more, but thank you very much for being on our show today. I think Mike enlightened us just based on who he is as a human being. I think that getting to know his parents, the speech that you gave for your father, running free in the 80 acres, and the whole process and how it impacts your everyday life is just profound. So I just want to thank you very much for being on the show today and talking about joy. It seems a little woo-woo. I'm curious why you said yes. Why did you say yes to this interview?
I'm a networker, and I don't have the most tremendous boundaries and filters, and I'm a risk taker, and so this all fits entirely with my personality.
I totally hear you, and thank you again for that. Some people think, joy, what are we talking about? But I think it's an important conversation to have. So you have a fabulous day, and thank you all for listening, and we'll be back again with another amazing CEO in the Joyily podcast.
Thank you, Cheryl Lynn.